Gordy's first date with Annika, aka Annie Philipp, was full of red flags. Find out if the sperm donor is still together with Annie after 90-day fiancé. 90-day fiancé. Love in Paradise couple Gordy and Annie Philipp's current relationship status after season 4 has been revealed. Kyle is a 32-year-old from Los Angeles who's dating Annie, 29, from Malta on the show. Kyle claimed to have fathered 71 children during his introduction. While he works as an accountant for a living, Kyle describes himself as a digital nomad who travels all over the world to meet clients who want to use Kyle's super sperm to have his baby. He claimed that unlike a traditional fertility clinic, he actually sleeps with his client. Kyle said he'd found out there was more success in his method instead of artificial insemination, which he also offers as a part of his services. Kyle's claims have made him come across as the most revolting man in the 90-Day Fiancé franchise, and yet he found single mom Annie, who showed an interest in dating him. Kyle was going to spend 2 weeks in Malta with the German woman as they explored their relationship. But with Kyle's shocking hobby always lurking in the background, Annie was one of Kyle's clients. Annie had a son from her previous relationship, but wanted a second child. Being single, Annie didn't have the means to have a new baby, but she knew her internal clock was also ticking away. Kyle's services as a sperm donor may have looked like an ideal thing to do for Annie. She contacted him 7 months before they appeared on 90-Day Fiancé. Annie liked the way Kyle made her feel when they talked online. She'd always believed that she'd meet her the one once he came and stood in front of her. Kyle and Annie spoke for hours online. They would laugh together, stay up late talking, and get along very well. Annie believed that Kyle was really special, and she seemed to think that he was the right person for her. Annie saw Kyle as her soulmate. She couldn't wait to have a second baby with him. Meanwhile, Kyle also felt like Annie was different from the other women who usually contacted him about sperm donation. They first felt a deep connection spark between them, and it didn't take a lot of time for it to turn into something more. Kyle has traveled the world ever since he decided he wanted to be a sperm donor a decade ago. Kyle was 22 when he met a lesbian couple that thought going to the sperm bank was expensive and were looking for an alternate route. Kyle helped them get pregnant, and soon his lore spread by word of mouth and took him places. Kyle admitted that he was bored with regular relationships and had no interest in being bothered by them. Donating sperm meant he didn't feel pressurized to find a girlfriend, but at the same time, he was having children. He demonstrated the positions he would ideally be in during the activity with his client, without any shame or embarrassment during his section. Kyle had actually made a pit stop in London before going to meet Annie in Malta. He planned to have intercourse with the person to give them a child and fulfill his sperm donor passion. While Annie had met Kyle as a client for his sperm donation hobby, she was now his girlfriend. Annie was seemingly okay with Kyle providing his clients with his sperm for artificial insemination. However, Annie drew the line there. Annie didn't appreciate Kyle indulging in intercourse donation after they became serious. To Annie, it may have come across as Kyle cheating on her. Meanwhile, Kyle was not ready to compromise on what he did. Annie wanted Kyle to sacrifice donating through sex for the sake of their future together and not sleep with other women. Kyle didn't want to jump in the bed with Annie after meeting her because that's what he did with the women he donated sperm to. Kyle wished to explore his emotional connection with Annie, considering she was his first real girlfriend. Kyle designed a point system through which Annie could earn his love. He said that with 3 points, Annie could get a kiss, with 5, she could get a tongue kiss, and he would give her full-on sex if she earned 10 points. Annie thought the point system was stupid. Kyle was treating Annie as if she was a child by assigning her a point system. He was disrespecting her and acting as if he were some kind of prize. Kyle wanted to come across as a man who wished to treat Annie like a woman he wanted to be with, rather than someone he was sleeping with for his hobby. It was okay for Kyle to want to take things slow and not immediately get intimate with Annie because they were meeting for the first time. However, Kyle could have thought of a better way to convey his feelings instead. Kyle expected Annie to earn points by doing things such as not smoking and not drinking. He had to go on a dinner date with Annie for which he wore the same clothes he traveled in. Kyle didn't even take a shower. While Annie didn't know that, she felt annoyed by Kyle wearing shorts to the restaurant. He claimed that it was what Americans did. When he saw Annie having wine, Kyle was immediately offended. He said Annie was losing points because of that. Kyle was messy, made slurping sounds while eating, and failed to make a good impression. Annie started to realize that she didn't know who the real Kyle was. She told the cameras she had already started thinking of ways to find a way out of the strange situation. She knew Kyle was weird when she spoke to him on video chat, but he was now slurping his food like a kid. Annie said it was very unsexy to see a man eating his food the way Kyle did. She was glad there weren't any people in the restaurant. Kyle claimed he was hurt and added that while Europeans focus a lot on etiquette, Americans, we don't do that. He said Americans didn't believe in etiquette because, as per him, we don't really do that in America. Kyle claimed he knew because he has a French baby mama. He assigned Annie points for eating fairly healthy. He checked Annie's nails because he expected her to give him back scratches even in public. As they left, Annie admitted she had really high expectations from Kyle, and he didn't meet any of them. He also asked her to wear a ponytail on the next date because he liked ponytails. Meanwhile, Annie thought he looked like a slob and had no manners. Still, Annie was interested in Kyle because he was mysterious and not easy to read like a book. She wanted to get to know him better to understand why he acted so strangely. Meanwhile, Kyle's Facebook profile mentions his current relationship status is single. Redditor Gladysia2 discovered Kyle's interview with Fox News in June 2023, where he says that he is single. Kyle reveals he had briefly dated one of the people to whom he had donated, presumably Annie, but he continued to donate his sperm. It proved too much of a deal-breaker, and they broke up after 2 months. Kyle had announced he was retiring from his sperm donation hobby because he wanted to build a meaningful connection with someone who liked him for him. In December 2023, Kyle told Metro that he was going to be spending Christmas alone. He called the season the loneliest time of the year since he had no children of his own to spend time with despite having fathered 71 kids across the world. Kyle's interviews are spoilers about his relationship status with Annie after filming 90 Day Fiancé, Love in Paradise.